The more elite the university and advanced that a graduate is, the dumber they are. The less likely I am to trust them. If you went to the Ivy League, prove to me that you have any common sense at all.
You went Ivy League, right?
Yes, and I sent one of my degrees back.
Okay.
Everybody, here to talk to you about the Second Amendment again. As I get started, I looked over and I'm reminded about the hole that was on my wall when I got rid of my Harvard degree. Thankfully, I replaced it with an honorary gunsmithing program degree from the Pennsylvania Gunsmith School.
Nothing says sticking it to the establishment quite like scribbling over and defacing a diploma you spent thousands of dollars earning and replacing it with an honorary certificate from a gunsmithing school. But you can't put anything past the MAGA cult nowadays.
It's typical Trump. All bluster, very little substance. He talks a tough game, but then when pressed on it, he's an armchair tough guy. I hate to say it, but this is a guy who said that John McCain is not a war hero, yet he sought his own 5 military deferments.
Following the likes of J.D. Vance, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, and far too many others, Hegseth chose to lick Trump's boots clean and abandon his past valid criticism of his dear leader once he realized that he would be the party's new king.
I think it's not an understatement to say we're in a constitutional tinderbox right now with people on both sides believing there's legitimacy and illegitimacy based on things they feel in their heart and love of their country. Donald Trump will articulate a lot of that today from the stage. He'll have thousands of supporters here.
Giddily reporting from the ground at Trump's January 6th speech at the Ellipse mere hours before his supporters would storm the Capitol. But before we get into the multitude of scandals plaguing his confirmation, let's hear how his fellow Republicans are feeling about his Secretary of Defense nomination.
A point that you're making here, the woman who accuses Pete of raping her in 2017, although the police, we should note, did not charge him with any crime. That woman, Pete Hegseth, paid her money and she signed a non-disclosure agreement, so she can't come on my show to talk about it. Do you think Pete should release her from the NDA so that I can ask her the questions that you want me to?
Absolutely not. There's so many. Think about it. Jake, you know,
absolutely
how many
absolutely
people,
not.
Wait, Jake. We know how many people sign non-disclosures just to eliminate something. Not that they ever did anything wrong, and he was never charged with anything.
Do you want me to ask her questions, or do you not want me to ask her questions? I'm confused.
So I'm not going to suggest that somebody, change a contract that they sign, but okay, this is Trump's nominee. He won. A lot of people don't like the fact that he won. He won.
It's amazing what Republicans will admit when the media decides to do their job for once and ask a pointed, substantive question. But Medicare fraudster Rick Scott, yeah, that's true, wasn't the only one to use this same justification for believing Hegseth over his accusers.
I'm not saying these allegations are true or not. I'm saying that it's been my experience that there are two sides to every story. And I discount substantially allegations from anonymous sources. If the folks who are making the allegations feel strongly about them, they should come forward and in front of God and country say, this is what I believe and here's why I believe it. And that's why we have confirmation proceedings, and everybody will have a chance to have their day in court.
I think the volume of some of the personal attacks on some of the nominees are stunning, including our buddy Pete Hegseth, who wrote a book about the Pentagon, served 20 years in the military, has been decorated, chose the infantry after Ivy League education. You've seen what he's able to accomplish for veterans.
John Kennedy and Brian Kilmeade reduced the disgusting and disturbing allegations against Hegseth to politically motivated personal attacks without merit.
That wants to talk to us.
Did you sexually assault a woman in Monterey, California?
I have, as far as the media is concerned, I'll keep this very simple. The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
She says she was introduced to him at a conference which was held for Republican women. Now, she alleges that in this report that he was acting inappropriately towards women. And the report says that she had an argument with him that evening by a hotel pool. Now, the fact that they had this argument was actually corroborated by hotel staff in this report. She says that her memory is quite hazy, but the next thing that she remembered was being in a hotel room with Hegseth. She alleges that he blocked the door, that he took her phone. She alleges that she said no quite a lot. She remembers that. She also said that she remembers him over her, that his dog tags were in her face, and she alleges that he sexually assaulted her.
A few days after this incident took place in the hotel room, Jane Doe does go to seek medical attention. She gets a rape kit. She tells the hospital that she's not sure if there was any penetration, but she believes that she was sexually assaulted. And then a nurse there reports it to authorities. Now, this is a very different account than what Pete Hegseth gave to authorities. He describes an evening of consensual sexual intercourse. He says that this woman, Jane Doe, ends up in his hotel room. He found it kind of odd that she stuck around, but they became intimate. And he tells authorities there was always conversation and always consensual conduct. He said that he and Jane Doe discussed that she was married, and she said she would tell her husband she had fallen asleep on the couch in someone else's room. He also told authorities she showed early signs of regret, although he didn't describe what that means.
While Hegseth was never charged with a crime after the police investigation and has denied the allegations that he essayed this woman, as we heard Jake Tapper and Rick Scott mention earlier, Hegseth paid an undisclosed amount of money to his accuser in a confidential civil settlement case. Though that doesn't mean he's automatically guilty, it does raise more questions and warrants an even more intense investigation to get to the truth of what happened in 2017. In that same vein, even Hegseth's own mother felt the need to rebuke and condemn his treatment of women in this email obtained by the New York Times, sent to Pete back in 2018 during his divorce from his ex-wife, Samantha. Penelope Hegseth called out his history of abuse and disrespect toward his ex-wife and women in general, despite reports saying that she immediately apologized to Pete and disavowed the email. The contents speak for themselves and shouldn't be totally discounted like what Mrs. Hegseth wants the American public to believe.
So the other thing I want to say is I am here to tell the truth to the American people and tell the truth to the senators on the Hill, especially our female senators. I really hope that you will not listen to the media and that you will listen to Pete. They were going through, Pete and his wife at the time were going through a very difficult divorce. It was a very emotional time, and I'm sure many of you across the country understand how difficult divorce is on a family. There's emotions. We say things, and I wrote that in haste. I wrote that with deep emotions. I wrote that as a parent, and about 2 hours later, I should. My husband tells me I should think through things a little bit more, but Pete and I are both very passionate people. I wrote that out of love. And about 2 hours later, I retracted it with an apology email, but nobody's seen that.
Look, we completely understand letting your emotions get the best of you and changing over time. But given all the information we have now, it is going to take a lot of evidence and convincing to clear Pete's image. And so far, we haven't seen nearly enough evidence to dismiss any of these claims.
How's the family holding up?
Oh, we're okay. We have a deep, deep faith. Not only in each other, but in God. And our friends have been amazing. The support we've been receiving has been amazing. So we're trusting in our God and in our faith and in our family.
I think it's admitted, at least in your divorce proceedings, that you did cheat on your first two wives. You're on your third marriage to Jen, a former colleague of my own at Fox, and yours too. And your hookup with this woman in Monterey happened when you were with Jen. So that's 3, right? And there are a lot of women at home and men who will be like, it's a no, right? He's too much of a serial cheater. Like, how can we put a guy in this position who's a serial cheater? So is that a fair characterization of you?
I think it was a fair characterization of me before I truly was changed by Jen and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and I mean that.
Hegseth's devotion to JC and his faith goes far beyond the mainstream as he proudly displays 2 Christian nationalist tattoos harkening back to the Crusades and paying homage to the violence the Crusaders inflicted on non-Christian populations. The tattoos were too much even for his fellow National Guard members, who reported his extremist tattoos to their commanding officers, preventing him from standing guard during Biden's inauguration in 2020, along with 11 other of his colleagues. Pete Hegseth should not be allowed anywhere near any levers of power, especially the military.